everybody. My name is Alan Greenlee. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern California Association of Nonprofit Housing, and welcome to our 2020 voter engagement event. As Election Day, Tuesday, November 3rd, quickly approaches, we're excited to share SCAMP's thinking about some of the important initiatives on the ballot. As you may know, there isn't a big affordable housing bond that would provide a ton of funding for development and operations of affordable housing. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things on the ballot that could either help or hurt affordable housing. Our SCAMP policy team has brought together a terrific group of speakers who will talk to you today about what makes sense, how to make sense of the ballot this year, and we hope that you get something from it. Just as importantly, it's important for voters to consider the candidates who are up for election this year. All of the members of the state assembly and a good number of the state senators are up for election, and then numerous local seats are being contested throughout the SCAMP region. It's important that voters are informed and know about the candidates and what they think about affordable housing. So for example, in the city of Los Angeles, we were able to get the candidates from City Council Districts 4 and 10 to respond to an affordable housing questionnaire. You can find their responses on the SCAMP website under the policy section in the policy roundup. I think that those responses are very thoughtful and worth your time to take a look at, regardless of what district you live in. And so with that, I think I'll just try to get our event started today. I'm going to hand over the microphone to our policy director, Frank Martinez. Frank?
Thanks, Alan. This is, the quick overview of what our speakers are going to get into in detail. We have three propositions, one measure, 4 items that we're going to talk about. Basically a minute each. I'm going to try to do 5 minutes and move on and get to the speakers. Before I get to that, I wanted to mention one more item, Prop 19, that we just voted last week to support, or not to support, to take a position on, and that we oppose. Prop 19 basically makes it easier for homes to be transferred with tax advantages and will make inequality worse in our state. It's being pushed by the realtors, so we're opposing this. For the items today, I'm going to talk about Prop 15, Prop 16, Prop 21 in the state, and Measure J in the county. I'll start with Prop 15. Prop 15 you may have heard of, known as Schools and Communities First. I'm sure you've all are aware of the old Prop 13 from 1978, which fixes property taxes the entities pay based on the purchase price. It's been with us for over 4 decades. And what this year's Prop 15 will do, Schools and Communities First, will undo part of that, just for commercial entities. It will not touch homes, private homes, your house. So this is just for commercial entities. Basically, the example to think of is that, an entity like Disneyland that bought its land a long time ago, a rich company with high-paid executives, that they pay taxes based on what they bought their land for decades and decades ago. So that's what this is going to roll back. The next item that I'm going to talk about is Prop 16. Prop 16 is another repeal of a old proposition you may remember or have read about. 1996 is very contentious Prop 209, which disallowed affirmative action, the use of race or ethnicity in admissions and other considerations in the state of California. California is now one of just 9 states that has a ban like this, and this year's Prop 16 is a push to undo that. Race and inequality are very closely linked, and as part of SCAMP's mission to fight for inequality and justice throughout society, particularly through housing, we are well aware of the racial lens, the racial effects that hit a lot of the people that we try to serve. So this Prop 16 is in line with the SCAMP values. The next one that I'm going to talk about is Prop 21. Now, this one affects a topic that casualty rent control. If you're more into the legislative history, this will tweak Costa-Hawkins Act, as it's known in California. This one will just allow localities that want to enact rent control, and it will allow them to do so in a limited way. If they want to do rent control, if local city councils think it's in the best interest of their community, they can do it, but only for properties that are 15 years old or older. It also excludes mom and pop entities that have just a couple houses or a one house that they're renting out. This entity, we believe that for localities that want to enact it, can help stabilize communities, especially communities of color, low-income communities. So we support Prop 21. Of course, at the same time, we always think that the biggest solution to affordable housing is building more affordable housing. But in this crisis, we think that localities should have the opportunity to pursue this if they want. The last item that I'll mention is Measure J. This one is just in LA County. Now, it's just one county, but as you know, LA County has 25% of the state's population, so it will have a big effect. This will set aside, by mandate, 10% each year of the budget, of the county's budget, for activities to further fighting incarceration. Now, there is a criminal justice, and a racial justice aspect to this for sure that is very in line with SCAMP's mission. In addition, those funds, which will total at least $1 billion a year, will go toward activities that include affordable housing. So that aligns not only with SCAMP's mission, but with the goals that we seek of building more affordable housing. That is it for me. I think I'm at about 5 minutes. That's an overview. Different members are going to hit these items in more detail, but last thing I'll say is Measure J in LA, and the short mnemonic for the other three, 15, 16, and 21, is just remember the big birthdays. 15, your quinceañera. 16, you can drive. 21, you can drink. So those are the three that SCAMP is supporting. That's it for me. I'm not sure who else is next, but go ahead. I believe Sophia's up.
Hey, thank you so much. Great to be here with all of you. I'm Sophia Lanza-Weil. I'm the field director for Yes on 15, Schools and Communities First. And I am just so thrilled to be talking with you all today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And we'll get started. So Prop 15 is also known, as y'all probably already heard, as Schools and Communities First. And what will Prop 15 do? Prop 15 will reclaim $12 billion a year every single year for schools and local communities. We do that by assessing commercial and industrial properties at their fair market value while still maintaining protections for homeowners, apartment buildings, agriculture, and small businesses as well. It will protect small business owners and help them. Any small business that owns a property valued at $3 million or less will be completely exempt. It also eliminates the business personal property tax on equipment, which is a really significant thing for small businesses. And Prop 15 also mandates transparency and accountability. We know that that's a big thing here in California. Well, probably everywhere, but I know in California it comes up a lot. So in Prop 15's language, it mandates that we are able to hear, as taxpayers and residents of California, how the money is spent every year by any entity that receives money from Prop 15. But I would just want to loop back to the top again and just say this is reclaiming $12 billion annually. When we think about all of the underfunding that we're experiencing now, we also know, of course, that this is not just a mere moment in time, but many of our communities, particularly low-income communities and communities of color, have been experiencing the impacts of disinvestment for decades. And so we have a really an incredible opportunity this year to change that. And not just for us, but for the whole nation. This is a real opportunity for us to say it's time for everyone to reinvest in new ways in our communities. So who pays that $12 billion a year? Well, large commercial property owners, 92% of the revenue comes from just 10% of the largest, wealthiest commercial properties in California. So somebody earlier gave the example of Disneyland, also Chevron, Amazon, huge corporations that can certainly afford to pay their fair share and have been getting away with not doing that for far too long. And once again, who doesn't pay? Residential properties of any kind are exempt. It doesn't matter how big they are, who owns them, how they're zoned. If it's a residence, it's exempted. Small businesses are also protected, and agricultural land is also protected. So where will the money go? All those 12 billions of dollars, we have split it in Prop 15, 40% to our K through 12 public schools and community colleges, and 60% to our local governments for things like affordable housing, homeless services, libraries, transportation, public health, our clinics, our trauma centers, our public hospitals, parks, roads and bridges, and firefighters, of course, and our first responders who we need so much, especially in this season. You can see here on the screen just a couple of the examples of where the money will go by county. If folks are interested in learning more, you can always go to our website, yes15, that's yes15.org. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you will see, you can click on a button down there that says, how will your county benefit? If you click on that, you can get a county by county estimate that shows at the county, the city, the special district, and also school level, exactly how much money your local area stands to gain. So why now? I think we all know that with the pandemic, we're all in a new level of crisis in terms of funding, in terms of services, in terms of need, but also in terms of opportunity. Prop 15, again, is frankly a historic opportunity. So right now, I think we know more than ever, as we're seeing all of these budget cuts and wiping out the surplus, we know that we need now more than ever actually to make this change. This isn't a time to say, oh no, let's let corporations not pay their fair share. This is a time that more than ever we need to say it's time for corporations to be held accountable. It's time for them to pay their fair share. This is not going to impact residences. It's not going to negatively impact our small businesses or agriculture. It's really doing what many, many, many states across our nation already do by creating the split roll and making sure that we get that money and put it where it's needed the most. Many of us have experienced the pain quite personally of disinvestment in our communities. And now we have a vote that we can use to say enough is enough, and we're going to make a change. So our opposition, this is, you can see here that some of the largest corporations, both in California and nationally and even internationally, are the biggest funders of our opposition. They're folks who are anti-tax, who don't believe that we should pay to, lift up our communities, who believe that corporations should get a special deal while the rest of us make up for it. And that's really what they're about. We, on the other hand, are an amazing coalition of folks from all across California. We represent, teachers, we represent firefighters, public health officials, the folks who teach in our schools and at our community colleges, people from every corner of California, from all backgrounds, have come together and said, the time is now more than ever to reclaim this money and put it where it's needed the most. So we've had a huge amount of support already. We qualified with a historic number of signatures. 1.7 million signatures were turned in to make sure that this got on the ballot. And we have consistently been polling strong. We have thousands of endorsers, and we're just 14 days out now. So it's an exciting time. It's an important time to get involved as well. This is really a fight for future generations. We say in my field team, we've got 14 days to make make an impact on future generations. That's not hyperbole. This money can change people's lives. If it's arts programs in the schools, if it's having school nurses and libraries open, access to technology, roads that work so people can get where they need to be, firefighters being fully, staffed and equipped to deal with our ongoing crises, really every corner of everything, affordable housing, right? We especially know how important that is, how much we need new sources of funds to build more affordable housing, to house our full communities, to provide the services that everybody depends on to make sure that at the bare minimum, our communities can not just survive, but also thrive. So this is the opportunity that we have. We hope that you'll join us, first and foremost, by voting yes. If you're like me, you got 6 pages of things to vote on in your in your ballot. So flip on back to our statewide propositions, vote yes on 15 first, and then go back and do all the rest. You can also get involved with us. You can text Our Future to 97779. You'll get updates and reminders of things like how to check your voter registration, how to make sure you know where your ballot is, all of that good stuff. You can also follow us on social media. And my personal plea as the field director, join us to Phone Bank. We have to talk to so many voters, make sure that people know not just how to vote on Prop 15, but also how to vote in general this year, where to turn in their ballots, how to do all of that. Everybody is welcome. You can sign up with us, scf.vote/phone_bank. We are calling 6 days a week, and we would love to have everybody join us. That's it for me. Thanks again so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophia. And I will now begin my presentation here. So let's share my screen. Okay. And hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Chris Bowen. I am the policy organizer at SCAMP. I just want to commend you for joining us today and being part of this new coalition of affordable homes voters. And I'm going to be speaking with you today a little bit about our engagement strategy and what we are doing to not only support these measures, but to help them win. And so the first step has been reaching into our resident service, making sure that they know that to be registered to vote. The registration was actually closed yesterday, but we had all of those conversations already over the course of October with these resident service directors, speaking with resident service coordinators, who then have conversations with residents directly. We're also spreading the word about our endorsements, but we wanted to let folks know, especially the residents, is where we stood, and Frank covered that a little bit earlier. But finally, we want to let the residents know how and where to vote. And so this year, it's a little bit different, obviously. And you can make sure that you get your, if you're voting by mail, that vote is postmarked by November 3rd. Very, very important that you get it in the mail by then, and that you request it by October 27th, if not before. Also, in-person voting will be available on Election Day, November 3rd. And that is open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And actually, vote centers are also open as of Saturday, October 24th. So all of these things are coming up, and we're spreading the word. The resident service directors know, comprised of over 10,000 residents. So this is why we consider ourselves this new voting block of affordable housing folks. And so also, we are building power with residents in not only in Los Angeles County, but all across the state. Here in Los Angeles County, we developed a resident network, Residents United Network Executive Board, and we established committees, including legislative, community relations, and operations. So if anyone wants to get involved, it doesn't have to be just residents of affordable housing, but folks that care about affordable housing, folks that work in affordable housing. We are accepting really a broad swath of folks to join us in this effort to spread the word on these issues. And then as Sophia mentioned earlier, and I know Sophia and all of our other representatives are working night and day to make sure that these really cross the finish line. But it's not just done with votes. It's done by speaking to people that are on the fence. And it's why over the next week or two, we are going to be having some opportunities for phone and text banking. So if you wanted to learn more about that, please keep an eye out on our mailing list. And if you had any interest, please email me directly, which is cbowen@scamp.org. But there will definitely be opportunities to be for this, and you're going to hear a little bit more about these opportunities, I'm sure, from some of our other representatives. Finally, we also have developed a SCAMP campaign steering committee, and we're always looking to help contribute to the conversation. If you're interested, again, email me. And also this committee, we are considering expanding the scope and duration of this committee because we would like to be involved in your communities. And we'd like to, for you to let us know what's going on so we can connect where you are, not just during the course of the year. Affordable housing and always need support, and that's what we are here. If there are, please to reach out to management of our residents. And so now I believe we have James.
Hey, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. So you've heard from Chris about our resident engagement work. You've heard from a representative from the Yes on 15 Schools and Communities First campaign. And you've heard an overview of each of our endorsed ballot measures. I'm going to talk with you for a little bit now about how you can be effective in spreading the word about these ballot measure campaigns on social media. So first, of course, the objective we're reaching for when we go on social media to talk about these ballot measures is to amplify each other's messages, meaning we're bringing more attention to each other's messages to make our combined voices as loud and effective as they possibly can be. We want to make sure that we're reaching those who have not yet voted in this in the 2020 general election, recognizing that many people have already voted, but many more have not voted yet. So that's the group of people we want to make sure that we're reaching. First, if you have not already, find each of our endorsed ballot measure campaigns on social media, show them some love, follow their campaign accounts on social media, and take a look and share some of the posts that they're putting out on social media to help that amplification, that amplifying step. On Twitter, hit that retweet and like button. Facebook, like and share. Instagram, like, share to your story. Each and every time an individual post gets shared by another account, that adds to how many people, how many users are going to see that message, which helps us spread the word about why people should be voting yes on 15, yes on 16, yes on 21, yes on J, and no on 19. As much as you can, make sure you're using hashtags and tag the campaign accounts. So using a hashtag, not so much used anymore on Facebook, but hashtags are still used pretty effectively on Twitter and Instagram. Using hashtags is going to make sure that all of our posts, what everybody is saying about each of these ballot measure campaigns, shows up simultaneously together in the same stream so that people who are on social media looking for information, looking for perspectives on these issues, will see all of our messages right on the same channel. And you want to make sure to tag the campaign accounts to make sure that people who are engaging with the messages that you share on social media know that they can go directly to those campaigns for more information. So you can share what other people have posted through a retweet, through a share. You can also share your own messages. And when you do that, important to know that, of course, we've all got limited attention spans when it comes to us being on social media. Short and sweet messages carry the day every time when it comes to social media. That's how You can make sure to keep folks engaged and then to convert them to taking action on what you're sharing about these very important election ballot measures. As much as you can, make sure you're sharing photos to your posts. Of course, a post on social media with a photo attached looks much nicer. It's going to grab attention much more quickly. It'll be more memorable for anybody engaging with it. But also there's another thing that people don't always know so much about, which is that the algorithms that power Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram rank posts higher if they have a photo attached. So that means more eyeballs are more likely to be able to see your post in their news stream if you've got a photo attached. You can share photos of yourself, the place you call home, your communities, and why for you personally or for your organization these ballot measures are so important. Or you can head to the websites of each of these campaigns, and I'll show you their sites in a minute to find social media resources and sample photos for you to use. The action you want to encourage people with each of your posts to turn to, of course, absolutely every time, is to urge people to vote in this election and urge them to vote on the side of our endorsed ballot measures. You also want to make sure once people have voted to make sure you're calling on people to get involved in these campaigns. That is the best thing we can do with our messages on social media. Because of course, posting on social media itself is good for spreading the message, but nothing beats getting active and talking directly to voters through text banking, through phone banking, and through other activities going on with each of these campaigns. And then finally, you also, to be effective with these messages, you want to make sure that you're linking back to the campaign accounts themselves and to the websites of these campaigns so that folks who are seeing your posts on social media, curious to learn more, or just get motivated by what you've written and wants to get engaged, can go directly to the campaigns to get more information, to get involved, to find out how they can be in contact with fellow voters across the state. So very quickly, the Yes on 15 Schools and Communities First campaign. I'm going to move my slide forward. Here we go. You already heard their Schools First CA on all social media accounts, and they're using hashtag YesOn15. For all of these, you can also use the more generic hashtag vote 2020, and hashtag vote California to draw additional attention to your posts for folks that are not following these specific ballot measures. And their website is yes15.org. For our next supported campaign, Yes on Prop 16, they are Yes Prop 16 on all social media networks, and they are circulating their posts on hashtag Yes on Prop 16. Website is vote yes on prop16.org. Yes on 21, the Rental Affordability Act, is Yes on 21 CA, hashtag Yes on 21, and online yeson21ca.org. The Yes on J campaign is also they are at reimagine_LA on Twitter and Instagram. Just keep you on your toes. They're a little bit different on Facebook, at reimagine Los Angeles, spelled out without the underscore, and then hashtag YesOnJ. Website is yesonj.reimagine.la. One moment, there we go. And then finally, we have endorsed a vote of no on Prop 19. There is not an official No on 19 campaign website or social media accounts, but that does not mean you should not be talking about voting no on this important ballot measure on social media in addition to your other activity. And you can use, both of these are being used by others on social media, hashtag no on Prop 19 and hashtag Prop 19. Some resources we've put together for you to get involved are in a public Google Drive folder that we'll be sure to link to with this presentation. It's bit.ly/scampvote2020. Very happy that Bitly randomly assigned us that convenient set of characters, bit.ly/scampvote2020, so where you can find our public folder of resources. You can also head to each of these pages on the official campaign websites for social media promotion resources. Share.yes15, 16.org/actions, 21.org/visual media, and reimagineLA/take action. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch. You know how to reach all of us on the SCAMP team. Thank you so much for all that you do and for being engaged in this election.
All right, I'm not Frank Martinez, but I'll play him today. It's my opportunity to introduce our guest speaker today. Thank you so much, Assemblymember Santiago, for joining us. Miguel Santiago is the Assembly member from the Fighting 53rd District in downtown LA, a great friend of affordable housing, and we're looking forward to hearing what you got to say about Prop 16. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on here today. And I appreciate the work that you guys continue to do, and particularly having a forum like this. That's incredibly important as we get closer to making our decision at home as to where we're going to vote on the propositions. But let me make the case for Prop 16 and why it's incredibly important. I think when we're done, you'll agree not only why we need to vote, but why we might need to go online, chip in $5, or text, call, or tweet or Facebook why you're on board for Prop 16. Little history for the younger folks in the crowd. Not me, obviously, because I was around during Prop 209 when Prop 209 was enacted that basically eliminated affirmative action back in '96. And what we're trying to do now is reinstate the use of affirmative action for very specific reasons. The ability to create equity, the ability to give the opportunity for all, and really the ability to uplift communities of color and women. And we know now that women on the general make about 80 cents on the dollar to its male white counterpart. And if you're a woman of color, you could be making anywhere between, I believe it's 43 cents to about 60 cents to male white counterpart. And when we're talking about a group like today who's building affordable housing and really trying to help that same population that we're trying to help in Prop 16, the ability to use race, cultural background, gender, as we make decisions to uplift communities in the area of university enrollment, contracting, or state or government employment, it really does fit hand in hand to the ability to have people improve their quality of life. But let's just take a look at some of the area that you work in and some of the folks who are helping to develop affordable housing. And we know that if you're a quote unquote minority-owned firm, or you're a woman-led firm, that those challenges become greater when you're applying to any sort of government work, or a contracting, I should say. And the ability to use indicators that tell us, for example, that there's not enough woman-owned firms who are doing work in government, and that extends all the way to local bond measures. I was having a conversation today with LA City, and they're talking about public works contracts, but even state contracts. When you take a look at the ability to take a deep dive and say 3% of the work being performed is performed by women-led firms, and the ability to do something about it, be it put programs together like the ones that we did at LACCD, although we couldn't target under the ban of affirmative action, boot camps to allow women-led firms to learn how to bid on some public works projects that they might not bid on in the past, the ability to put programs together to help bonding, the ability to just outreach to specific groups of people, to recruit, to uplift, and to bring them into these sorts government work. And that's just to give you kind of one example, because currently we can't do that. Currently, all you can do is say there's not enough small and emerging firms, and you take a big wide net. But I think in today's world, when we're taking a look at really how to knock down systemic racism, and you guys have been along the battle with us to ensure that we build equity by the very work that you do, building affordable housing, but the ability to actually go back and say we want to knock down systemic racism by giving opportunity to all and put programs in place that uplift certain communities is a huge change under Prop 16. We've just released some polling numbers today that shows it's neck and neck. The biggest challenge is folks understanding what it is and what it does. It's a little bit complicated, right? Because we're trying to overturn a proposition of about 25 years ago. So you have about a generation of folks who don't remember the don't remember or could imagine when a Republican governor sat in California. Although we who are a little bit older and show some gray hair could certainly remember. But in today's world, we need to educate people on the sort of changes that we need that'll help us to achieve that sort of equity. And look, on the government side, on the ability to produce a better product when there's more people bidding on the contracts, there's an efficiency that ends up on the government side. And certainly I saw it when I was at the LA Community College Board. If you had one bid on the product, chances are that's the bid you could get stuck for a few bids. But if you had a number of bids, their product was always better and it was always more competitive, and we always got much better product when we had more individuals bidding at work. So that's in terms of your realm, what it will do. And in terms of admissions, and this sometimes becomes a point of discussion. But look, the ability to use race or gender into university admissions is a game changer for the same very communities that you're trying to build affordable housing for, because we know that certain communities left behind, and we know that if we give those communities that opportunity, we uplift those very same people that you're trying to help. And the ability to say certain kids are being left behind, and the ability to invest in those communities to improve their schools, to put the tutoring programs, to create the bridges into higher learning institutions is a game changer for some of our communities, or all of our communities, I should say, and gender as well, right? If we know that certain universities are not equitable in their gender intake, we can change that. We can't do that right now. We can't take anything into consideration, and that stops it. But also when you take a look at government employment, and I want to elaborate on this because I think at first glance, I want to dispel some myths. People will take a look and say, yeah, we're well represented within government employment, but we're not well represented is in management positions, and moving up the ladder. So there is the ability to put programming in place that helps to promote from within, using the tools that we know, and knowing the facts that certain populations within certain government pools are not being promoted or do not have the ability to do so, and putting those kind of programs in place will be a game changer. And I know you've allocated a little bit of time for me, but I wanted to make a very simple yet incredible large step forward pitch to why we should vote for Prop 16, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to help that very same population that is making incredible amounts of sacrifice to help their kids, working day and night to afford a roof over their head. And during this pandemic, I could tell you that the income inequality and the disparity that we've seen between those who are doing very well and those who are struggling, and that gap that just continues to get much wider, couldn't be more evident today. And this is a generation of people who will be able to take a look at and do something about it, where we begin to make that positive change in communities, simply because we have all our tools on the table to level the playing field and make that change that we need to for all California. And it really will give us the opportunity to achieve opportunity for all, and no one left behind. So thank you very much for giving that opportunity out to everybody else who's on there. Thank you very much. And I can't get off the phone without saying thank you for the work that you do. And I got to tell you, you guys have heard me say this before, can't build enough affordable housing in California. So keep at it. I see some good friends on there making the pitches too, like Susie. So thank you very much for having us on, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you so much for your time. So remember, we really appreciate you making room on your schedule for us. And with that, I'm going to transition directly to Susie. You already got your warm shout out from Sumo member Santiago. Talk a little bit about Prop 21 for us today.
Great, thank you so much. And I so want to thank SCAMP for endorsing Proposition 21. So Proposition 21 prevents homelessness and preserves affordable housing. And I think that's the most important thing to remember about this proposition. We know from a Zillow study that for every 5% increase in rent, another 2,000 people become homeless. And California is in a homelessness and affordable housing crisis. There are over 150,000 people right now who are homeless in the state of California, which is quite outrageous. And all of these statistics are prior to COVID. And so what it actually does is it allows our local municipalities, your city council members, and your county supervisors the freedom to provide renter assistance and to enact or expand rent control where it's needed. And it's a completely flexible and voluntary program, but it's also a tool that's very important for local government to be able to prevent homelessness, to provide renter assistance. So for instance, we know that millions and millions of people are out of work right now because of COVID. Many are struggling to pay the rent. And so the city of Los Angeles actually passed an ordinance enacting a rent freeze, basically saying that for COVID impacted tenants, their rent couldn't go up. And then also enacting an eviction moratorium. And they were sued by one of the local apartment owners association because of a law called Costa-Hawkins. And that law actually has prevented rent control from being enacted or expanded at the local level since 1995. And it's the reason why, if you live in Los Angeles, you need an apartment that was built in 1978 or prior to that in order to be under rent control. And so this actually reforms Costa-Hawkins, Proposition 21, and allows for our local municipalities to provide that renter assistance, help prevent homelessness, help prevent evictions. And we've seen with COVID, in the midst of a pandemic, how important it's been to help renters and people who just simply can't go to work, no fault of their own, and can't pay the rent. How important that is for our local municipalities to have that kind of freedom to provide the renter assistance. And so we know that there are a number of people who are facing eviction right now, with many, many people not able to pay rent. The Aspen Institute study shows that 4 to 5 million people right now are in danger of becoming evicted without immediate government assistance, and over 365,000 people in Los Angeles alone. So we desperately need this measure. It is very reasonable. Like I said, it allows local municipalities to enact rent control. It carves out the first 15 years for new construction. So for new buildings, we give 15 years for developers to recoup their costs. It only applies if you're a single family homeowner, but you also rent out your home or a number of homes. You can, if you own under 3 homes and you rent them out, you are exempted. So that will actually, it will apply to you, Proposition 21. And also it allows for vacancy control. So we've seen a lot of neighborhoods have a lot of gentrification. A lot of people are being priced out of their neighborhoods because the rents have gone so high. And so this actually allows for local municipalities to have a cap on that. So when a unit is vacant, and again, this does not apply to the current tenant, but if a unit is vacant, the landlord can't raise the rent from the previous tenant any more than 15% in 3 years. So it's all very reasonable. It's going to actually help stimulate housing construction, according to several studies. And so, and it also saves taxpayers money. We know that the cost of homelessness is about $35,000 to $45,000 per person per year for each person that's chronically homeless. And so this is a huge burden on taxpayers. It's, if you're not driven by the humanitarian argument for helping our homeless community, definitely from a financial perspective, an economic perspective, we definitely want to do that because it actually saves taxpayers money. So again, I really appreciate SCAMP supporting Proposition 21, along with several of our other supporters. We have a very large coalition, including the California Democratic Party, ACLU of California, a number of unions, including Unite Here, AFSCME California, SEIU California, a number of homeless organizations, including Western Center on Law and Poverty, housing organizations, there's SCAMP, Housing Now, and then a lot of tenants groups and a lot of homeless advocacy groups who are supporting this up and down the state, and including some environmental groups like Sierra Club. So you're in great company. And we are working very hard to get the word out about all of our supporters and what this proposition will actually do. And then on the other side, on the no side, we have basically corporate landlords and equity firms who, and the corporate landlords and equity firms, what they tend to do is go into neighborhoods and they buy up neighborhoods and they raise the rent. And they are not like the mom and pops. The mom and pops are typically, folks who, own like 4 units, 8 units, and they tend not to like gouge renters and that kind of thing. But with corporate landlords and the equity firms who are on the no side, along with the Republican Party, they're more profit oriented. And so this has caused a lot of problems with gentrification and skyrocketing rents in California. And so they are working sort of against our proposition. And then so obviously we want to encourage everyone to vote yes on Proposition 21 and to vote as early as they can if they haven't voted already. But then there's a lot of opportunities that we have to volunteer. We're doing phone banking and text banking like a lot of other organizations. It's really helpful actually to put something out on social media, even if it's just a yes on 21 on your Facebook, or sending out a text is really important. And I find really just sort of peer-to-peer and talking to families, talk to your family, your friends, folks that you're with, colleagues about Proposition 21 and how important it is to vote yes on 21. Our homeless crisis is already so awful right now, and it's very hard just to manage a little over 151,000 people who are homeless right now. And clearly we're not really managing it. So to add, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands onto that homeless count, when it could easily be prevented by passing Proposition 21, I think is an important message to put out there. So that's it. I just hope that people will support it and volunteer. And we've got 2 more weeks. Well, we've got a few more weeks, and November 3rd, we'll know for sure. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susie, for joining us. And next up, we have Jordan Wynn with Yes on Measure J, and this is just for Los Angeles County.
Thank you very much, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Wynn. I am a member of the Everyone In campaign, and I've been working on the Yes on Measure J campaign, which is focused on direct community investment and alternatives to incarceration. I wanted to give you a little bit of a background as to kind of what brought us to this moment that we're in right now, and why Measure J is so necessary for us in Los Angeles County, and serves as a beacon of leadership, honestly, for the rest of the country. Obviously, in June, with the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, there were mass movements and mass calls across the country, including in Los Angeles, to make a change in the way that we administrate and spend resources on law enforcement and incarceration. Communities across the nation wanted to see a shift in the way public funding was being used, moving away from violent policing and incarceration and towards direct community investments that would help take care of the community overall. Measure J answers that call that was put out in June that residents across Los Angeles County and across the nation put out earlier this year. It answers the call of beginning to address systematic injustice that affects our Black community and communities of color across Los Angeles. It answers the call to change the ways we think of community safety, moving towards alternatives to incarceration and law enforcement that all too often responds with violence instead of care. It answers the call to reinvest our tax dollars into our communities, supporting direct community investment where we need it the most. Measure J is the people's voice in our county's budget and the first step towards a future that prioritizes community needs. I'd like to share with you the Yes on J webpage because I think it does a really good job of breaking down exactly what Measure J is and why it's important. So this is our landing page, which you can go to at, if you type in reimagine.la or yesonj.reimagine.la. And as you can see in the background, this really comes out of the mass call that we saw across Los Angeles to make a change. Measure J is all about investing in communities. As you can see here on the side, we have a breakdown of the Los Angeles County budget, and of local tax revenue that's used, we have $500 million that Measure J is asking to permanently allocate, which equates to about 10%. That amount actually increases as you go further and further year by year, close to $1 billion actually, that will become available for community investment and alternatives to incarceration. Through a majority vote of the County of Los Angeles, Measure J is going to be amending the LA County Charter to permanently allocate these 10% of existing local controlled revenues, which once again is about $1 billion every year once fully phased in, to be directed to community investment and alternatives to incarceration. Now, this is because we want to shift the budget. This is what the budget currently looks like right now. Of the taxpayer dollars that come into the county, about 42% or $1.75 billion are used specifically on law enforcement and the legal system. Right now, it's time to invest in community counseling, mental health services, youth development, housing, jobs, and so many more resources that our community needs. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen these kinds of community needs exacerbated even further. And there are many people, as was mentioned by our last speaker on 21, that are facing homelessness and facing housing instability, job instability. Mental health needs are on the rise, and physical healthcare needs are also on the rise. And it is important now more than ever that we reconsider the ways that we are investing in our community. Measure J will structurally change the budget and permanently enshrine these community values into our county charter. So here's exactly how it breaks down. Measure J is essentially 10% off the top, we would be requiring at least 10% of local controlled tax revenue, so everything that comes into the county, to be invested into communities and alternatives to incarceration. There would be eligible and ineligible uses for the funding, and the Board of Supervisors is going to be adjusting and approving the use of those funds with voter-approved constraints on an annual basis. Now, the community itself is actually going to be a big part in choosing where these funds go through a community budgeting process. Measure J will be clear that use of any of these funds cannot be utilized for carceral systems or any law enforcement agencies. None of this 10% can go towards solutions that fund those kinds of programs. They need to be related directly to housing, health, jobs, and alternatives to incarceration. Funds for Measure J also have to be independent from funds that already exist to fund community needs, meaning we're getting new sources of funding for most of our important resources that we have across our community. And this breaks down exactly what those components are. I've used the words already to direct community investment and alternatives to incarceration, but what exactly does that look like? What programs are entailed under each of those subtitles? Within direct community investment, we see things like increasing funding for community-based youth development programs, prioritizing our youth in our communities and making sure that they have the resources to succeed as they go through schooling and age up into adult life. Providing career training and jobs to low-income residents, focusing on jobs that support the implementation of the alternatives to incarceration framework that was set out actually earlier this year, before the protests even began, by the Board of Supervisors. And this is especially true when it comes to the construction jobs for the expansion of affordable and supportive housing and a decentralized system of care. So as you'll see, if you look through the details of the policy, many of these different components work together, not just as independent entities or independent places where we place our resources, but as a network of resources for our community. That's why we title it direct community investment. That's what it's all about, making sure not only do our communities receive the funding that they need, but that we're working efficiently as a system together to care for our community members. There's also a very large focus on jobs and business, especially when it comes to Black-owned and minority-owned businesses. We want to create access to capital for small minority-owned businesses with a focus on Black-owned businesses, for the reason being that so much of what is transpiring when we have seen police violence and carceral violence is that there's a racial element to it, that Black folks in particular are affected more by these misallocations of resources, and for generations have faced the consequences of discrimination and segregation. Measure J is a step forward in making sure that we can begin to remedy those things as a community. We need to make sure that we are placing community priorities first and making up for past and current grievances and errors that our cities have been making when it comes to racial justice. We need to make sure that we're investing in Black lives and investing in communities of color in our communities. We also want to make sure that we're providing rent assistance, housing vouchers, and other preventative measures for those at risk of losing their housing or without stable housing. As was mentioned earlier, there are thousands of families across Los Angeles County right now that are at risk of losing their housing, skating by on eviction moratoriums, who are still having trouble finding work or finding a way to pay back that rent. We need to make sure that we're funding programs that will help keep people in their homes and stymie the inflow that we see in Los Angeles into homelessness. We are currently building a lot of solutions for affordable housing, transitional housing, and supportive housing using other programs. And Measure J bolsters those programs as well, making sure that we have the capital funding available to provide affordable housing, transitional housing, and supportive housing. But it's all about making sure that your system is working as best it can, both funding preventative resources as well as resources for people who need affordable housing, who need to get back up on their feet and need the assistance of supportive housing where there's an affordable home for you to stay, along with wraparound services to help rehabilitate and get you back on your feet. The other large subheading that Measure J funds is alternatives to incarceration. And that includes things like increasing funding for community-based restorative justice programs, circumventing and making sure that people don't get trapped in prison recidivism, increasing support for pretrial non-custody services and treatment, focusing on the psychology and the mental health and well-being of those that are going through prosecution, and making sure that we have life-affirming community-based counseling and mental health and wellness services is also a very large component of that. So all of these different things kind of highlight the top lines of the various community resources that we'll be funding through Measure J. And again, these are resources that may otherwise be causing harm to our communities if they aren't invested properly. So we need to make sure that we're shifting the funding that we have now towards these valuable community resources to encourage the health and well-being of our communities. Our county's budget really importantly needs to reflect our values and the will of the people who are demanding systemic change. People are being crushed by the pandemic in a status quo budget that continues to not prioritize their needs. And Measure J is all about raising the people's voice. So there's a few ways that you can help out if you want to get involved with Measure J. One of the ways that you can take out is by taking action. If you go to our website and click this top right portion here, you can donate to help fund the campaign, our Yes campaign. The No on J campaign is comprised primarily of the Sheriff's Department, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and police unions, and those who work alongside the carceral system. And those are some very large spenders. So we need to make sure that we're getting as much as we can to fight back and make our community voice heard. Yes on J has been a very big grassroots campaign. It's been led from the very beginning from the voices of the people. And we want to make sure that we're centering that in our campaign as well. The other way you can get involved is by phone banking with us. We lead virtual phone banks every day. There's actually a multitude of organizations that are working on that. So if you want to get involved, you can go to our Yes on J page and sign up for a virtual phone bank, text bank, or volunteer recruiting session. I'd like to thank SCAMP very much for giving us this time today to talk about why Yes on J is so important. And at this point, I will pass it back to the Executive Director of SCAMP, Alan Greenlee. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jordan, for that terrific presentation. We are now at the end of our session, and my job is to make some concluding remarks. So the first thing I want to do is express my appreciation for all the speakers, especially our special guest, Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, talking about Prop 16. I also want to thank Sophia Lanza-Wheel and Susie Shannon for their commentary on Props 15 and 21. And of course, the SCAMP team, Frank Martinez, Chris Bowen, and James Salcedo. I think they're cutting down trees outside my house right now. The second thing I want to say is just remember, yes on 15, 16, 21, and J, and no on Proposition 19. And then finally, no matter what you think about how you want to vote, just make sure that you do vote. And finally, go Dodgers.